بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد أحبتي في الله اللهم إني أعوذ بك أن أشرك بك وأنا أعلم واستغفرك لمن أعلم. أحبتي في الله, I wanted to, in as concise manner as possible, which of course doesn't give this topic the haq, it's right, address the statement that we hear often: we only need Tawheed. And I heard this and have always advocated this, but it depends on what you mean by that. And it depends on your understanding of the statement. And I'm going to talk about a few issues. And I recall in Medina, at Sheikh Obaid's house, and I won't mention the student who's now, I believe, an imam or something in one of the cities in America, and this particular individual, we were talking about some community growth, and he's a youngster, he's at least 10 years younger than I. So when we were on the dawah, he was definitely in diapers at best. But I remember him kind of aggressively coming up, and actually it was a dars of Sheikh, it was Sheikh Obaid al-Jabari. It was outside of his house, and it was Riyadh al-Salihin. And in fact, we were talking to the Sheikh. The Sheikh was, and Abdullah was there, and this particular brother and some other brothers, and the brother mentioned, after me and another brother who was older were talking about some other aspects of the dawah and the deen, and he said this very statement: we only need Tawheed. We're talking about community building, owning a masjid and this kind of thing, and he said we only need Tawheed with very staunchness. The same brother, may Allah guide us in him. So I want to address this. We know that the purpose of creation is Tawheed. It's to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of creation is to worship Allah azza wa jal. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. I've not created mankind and the jinn except for the purpose of worshiping. Our purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is built upon Tawheed in Islam. Tawheed and prohibiting shirk. Okay? Now, all of Islam, this depends on your understanding. And I've also seen recently in a refutation, this is another reason why I wanted to speak about this, a particular brother was refuting another student of knowledge that's known for his ilm al-fadl wa-sunnah. And he said something, he wrote an article, and it said we only need Tawheed, or that Tawheed will rectify everything, okay? And everyone commented, yeah, the people who are his supporters. And this is what tends to be. Everybody, as they say, birds of a feather flock together. Or, and kullu hizbi ma ladayhim farihun. And I'm not saying that this brother is a hizbi, but what tends to happen is people, they flock together with their ideas and they pat each other on the back for having a particular concept. And a lot of times we see the hizbis do this to the fullest extreme. Someone can tell total lies, like the whole lecture can be on lies. I mean, lies from A to Z. I'm not talking about, but just about a subject they shouldn't be talking about, and lies and mistakes. And everybody will comment, yes, brother, Jazakallah khair, a very beneficial lecture. Subhanallah. This shows the ignorance of the people, or the blind following in the ta'assub, to such an extent that it's blinded them from the haqq in totality. So it's very important that we are just and we are balanced, that in the Islamic way. Just and balance is from the Prophet ﷺ. We're not talking about a new type of justice and a new type of balance. So what I see and what we can look at, Islam, everything yabni ala tawheed. Everything is built upon tawheed. Every act of worship, as some of the ulama have written about Hajj, for example, and that it's an actualization. It is Tawheed al-Ibadah. It is Tawheed al-Uluhiyya, as they say. That this is the actualization of worshiping Allah alone. You are fulfilling those rights to worship Allah Azza wa Jal alone. That's it. That's the reason you are making tawaf around the black stone and kissing the black stone if you're able to. It has nothing to do with anything else except for you're trying to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in accordance with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of that is Tawheed. It's built upon Tawheed. All of Islam is built upon Tawheed. What we see is two poles, two extremes, and then there's a third which is in the middle. And that's the balanced, correct Islamic path. What I mean by this is that there are some people who say we only need Tawheed. And what they mean by this as is apparent from their dawah and what they do and their actions and the way they make inkar of someone talking about other aspects of the religion, is that for them it's sufficient to say, and especially you'll find this amongst youth and people who haven't studied, to say, Tawheed, basically it's sufficient to know the categories of Tawheed. You just need to memorize those 3 categories, and you need to understand Tawheed Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, wa Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat. And this is the most extreme, where they exclude fiqh, like don't study fiqh, or don't, they give very little importance to understanding how to actualize that Tawheed, because that fiqh is actualizing the Tawheed, and they give very little precedence to mu'amalat and the fiqh of there's fiqh ibadah, fiqh ibadat, wa fiqh mu'amalat. The fiqh of worship, and the fiqh of how we ta'amul, how we interact with other human beings, buying and selling, marriage, divorce, all the other biyur, buying and selling. All these things are fiqh al-mu'amalat, how you interact with other people. طيب. And looking at the masalih and mafasid. They may not even go to that extent. For them, it's just knowing those categories. Now that is the most extreme manifestation, and that is based on ignorance, because that is undermining the fact that Tawheed is inherent in the whole religion, and the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated the whole deen. All things are there to actualize Tawheed. And Tawheed rectifies society not by memorizing the categories, but by practicing the Tawheed, by having Iman, illustrating for the people Iman, giving them tarbiyah, and building the community. Right. Let's go to the other extreme before we get to the balance. The other extreme is those people who only deal with social ills. They say, hey, our society has racism, our society has corruption, our society has nationalism, our society has extremism, our society has this and that and the other. And so they make unity on other than Tawheed. And Tawheed is the foundation of the religion. So they emphasize certain aspects of the religion, and probably one of the clear manifestations of this would be the manhaj of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Not every individual Ikhwani, but the methodology of Ikhwan al-Muslimin, because they unite based upon on anything, on just getting the numbers there. And it might be an extreme Sufi Kaburi, it might be a very political Ikhwani, it might be people who have the Salafi Aqidah, and it might be people, okay, you get the point, is that they unite based on anything. Instead of following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, who said, وَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةُ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ. It's upon you my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided Khulafa al-Rashidin. And the Prophet ﷺ said, after making bayan and clarifying for us this prophetic sunnah, or this prophecy, that the ummah would break into 73 sects, all of them in the fire except for one. They said, man hi ya Rasulullah, qala man kana ala mithli ma kana alayhi wa ashabi. That the ummah would break into 73 sects, all of them in the fire except one. Who are they, ya Rasulullah? Those who follow my sunnah and the sunnah of my companions. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Meaning what the Sahaba were united upon in Aqidah and Fiqh and Mu'amalat and other aspects of the religion. So they ignore that. They focus only on societal ills at any cost in any extreme. So I'm giving you just the general extremes. Where's the balance? What is correct? What is Islam call us to do? And what Islam calls us to do is what Salafis have to call you to do. And what Islam calls us to do is what the minhaj and methodology of the Salaf as-Salih is. And what Islam calls you to is what the madhab of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah is. That's what it is. But this balance, which is a part of the creed, part of the minhaj, part of the mu'amalat, part of everything that Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah propagates, this balance is that Tawheed is inherent in everything in the religion. I mean, we do everything as a part, these acts as a part of worshiping Allah. If I refute Ahl Bid'ah, a specific individual, or make takfir of someone from Ahl Bid'ah, not necessarily me, but we're saying in one of the scholars or whoever, it has to be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It never fall out be based upon the person's desires. That is not legitimate as a reason to make takfir or tabdi' of someone, but rather it should be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It should be to warn the community of the believers. It should be a part of commanding the good and forbidding the evil. All of those are Islamic concepts which are actualizations of Tawheed. I hope you follow me. Iman. Iman, as the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu ta'ala, and this is just one of the many evidences for that Iman is when he said, "من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطيع فبلسانه فإن لا يستطيع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان." رواه Muslim. He said that whoever sees a munkar, then change it with his hand, and if he's unable to do so, change it with his tongue, speak out against it, and if he's unable to do so, change it with his heart, meaning hate it in your heart, and that's the weakest form of Iman. What does that mean? Those are all aspects of Iman. And what are they? They are the maratib of Iman. And what else are they? They're the levels of Iman. What else are they? They are also comprised of, it shows Iman is what? Iman is belief in the heart. It's a statement on the tongue, and it is actions of the limbs. That is the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah. So, meaning, Tawheed, Iman, and one of the pillars of Iman. What's the first pillar of Iman? And tu'minu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi ila akhir hadith. It is believing in Allah and believing in His angels and His books. To the rest of the hadith, to the rest of the pillars, the 6 pillars of Iman. What is the first pillar? It's Tawheed. It's and tu'minu billahi, believing in Allah, believing in His lordship, rububiyyah, believing in His believing in uluhiyyah and practicing uluhiyyah. That's implementing the Tawheed. And by His supplicating to Him and worshiping Him by His divine names and attributes that are restricted to Him. That is your Aqidah. That's creed. And that's the creed of what we believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's Tawheed. So Tawheed and practice, all of that is a part of Islam. When we talk about building masajid, building community centers, building a community, economics, all of that, if it is used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is a part of practicing Tawheed. It is a part of your Iman. You are making actions. If you do a financial transaction, that's halal. And you are doing that in order to build a community center, in order to feed the poor, from the kuffar to the Muslims and the non-Muslims. As sadaqah, and to call them and encourage them to worship Allah alone and show them that Islam is the haqq. That's Tawheed. That's actualizing Tawheed. If you are concerned about the social ills in your community for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're building those people who have been decrepit, who have been destroyed, who have been demoralized, who have been dehumanized, and you are trying to uplift them based on the call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, not because you want a particular country over another country, a particular color over another color, a particular nationality over another nationality, but you're trying to uplift your people by calling them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Tawheed, that's a manifestation of Tawheed. You're giving them dawah, you're answering their questions, you're helping them, you're feeding them, you're giving them jobs, you're building their community based on the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innama a'malu binniyat, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, verily actions are tied to the intentions. So this lets us know, ahabati fillah, that the balanced path of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah is that we deal with everything in the religion. And that means curing people's social ills. If we have alcoholics, we help the alcoholics get help and call them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise if they're drug addicts, likewise if they're porn addicts, likewise if they're zanis, likewise if they're adulterers, likewise if they're thieves, likewise if they're thugs, and likewise if they're dancing at the strip club, likewise if they're whatever they're doing, by meeting their needs. This is a part of helping the believers. And if it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is your Tawheed. This is actualizing Iman. This is actualizing Tawheed. Because you are trying to call people from dhulumat ila nur. You're calling them from darkness to the light of Islam, the light of istiqamah. Istiqamah is what? It's being firm on the religion of Islam. What is the religion of Islam? As some of the ulama define it, al-istislam lillah bi tawheed wa inqiyaduhu بطاعة وخلوص من شرك وأهله. Look at that. It's implicit in the definition. What is Islam? It is istislam lillah bi tawheed. It is submitting to Allah in monotheism, pure in a monotheism. Istislam lillah bi tawheed wal inqiyadahu, and firmly submitting your desires and yourself to His commands. Wa khulus min shirk, and leaving off the shirk, being away from shirk and people who call you to shirk. That's tawheed. That's Islam. That's the foundation. So when you're trying to do good, and it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're actualizing tawheed. So we don't belittle anything from the religion. When you have good manners, what is that? That's actualizing tawheed. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ma min shay'in adkhulu fi mizan mu'min yawm al-qiyamah min husn al-khulq." There isn't a thing that weighs heavier on the scale of the people on the day of judgment. There isn't a thing that weighs heavier on the scale of the people on the day of judgment than good manners. So then how is it you could leave out manners when you call to Tawheed? How is it that you can leave out manners in your da'wah to Ahl Sunnah? Because the da'wah to Ahl Sunnah, aslan, has manners and is a part of good manners. And sometimes that's how people become Islam and become Muslim. And that's often the case. They don't come, put a pistol to someone's head and think that they're going to become a Muslim. That rarely happens. This rarely happens. So, my point being, ahabati fillah, the Prophet ﷺ also was asked, Su'ila Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an akthiri ma yudkhala nas al-jannah. The Prophet ﷺ was asked about what is the thing that brings the people, that mostly brings the people into paradise. The thing that brings the people to paradise the most. He said, Taqwallah wa husnul khulq. The Prophet Muhammad, the leader of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, he said, the leader, he's the one we are obligated to follow. Wa'ati'u Allah wa'ati'u Rasul. Follow Allah, obey Allah, and obey the Messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We're ordered by Allah. That's actualizing Tawheed. When you follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that's actualizing Tawheed. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked about what will enter the people to paradise the most, he said, Taqwallah wa husnul khulq. That means fearing Allah and adhering to His commands. That's a part of Tawheed. And that's heavy on your scales. And that's one of the most things that will get you into Jannah, is having taqwallah. Because taqwallah is what? That's actualizing ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And husnul khulq, good manners. And so I advise myself and my brothers and sisters to be good with people. And wallah, this is just me personally, and I have many shortcomings, tons of sins, and all that and then some, and may Allah forgive us. But I'm just trying to illustrate for this and make it personal, because it is personal, that we have enough sins. And I have found, and this is in accordance with so many hadith, and we're going to do a dars about this in the future, about the importance of being gentle and kind to people, that I found in my Islam, and in my life really, that being good to people, even your enemies, or even people who despise you or what have you, always mostly has the best results. It can get you, it can save your life, it can get you away from harm, it can, it's hard for someone to speak as severe about you when you treat them with knowledge-based wisdom and good manners. You're not cursing them. As soon as you curse their mother, they're going to curse your mother, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. That if you curse their God, what will they do? They'll speak about Allah Azza wa Jal. So refrain from that. So the husnul khulq is heavy on your scales, and one of the things you will get to paradise about. So how is that not a part of Tawheed? Good manners is a part of manifesting Tawheed, because if you have good manners and you are trying to please your Lord, and you're trying to rectify between two people, you're trying to bring good between people, and you're trying to show good to non-Muslim and Muslim, to the young and to the old, to the one who's a harsh youngster, to the one who's misguided, to the one who's from Ahl Bid'ah, you'll find, most of the time, you'll find better results than if you treated them harsh and you began with hajr, and you began with attacking them, and you began with belittling them. And what is that, ahabati fillah? What is all of this I'm talking about? I'm talking about Tawheed first. I'm talking about we do need Tawheed, and we only need Tawheed. But that does not mean we leave the rest of the religion. It means the rest of the religion is built upon Tawheed. And we ask Allah the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. Anything I said that was correct, anything I said that was incorrect with myself and the shaitan, wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.